I'm excited to share this shoot with you all. This is the Nas Illmatic shoot, legendary shoot in hip hop, in music. It happened because I had photographed third base for Spin magazine, and I got some great photographs of third base, hit it off with MC Search. We exchanged numbers. He hit me up and he said, "Hey, I'm working with this artist that's getting signed to Sony, and I'd like for you to listen to the cassette, and I think you're the guy to shoot it. I like your style. It's very documentary in feeling, and this artist wants to be photographed in his neighborhood where he came from." And he said the artist's name is Nasty Nas. And I played that cassette while I was in the darkroom. I was often in the darkroom at that time. I loved being in there, cranking up music and processing film and making prints. And it was just a very cinematic record. And I realized I was the guy for the job because I loved the document. And this record was a story. It was great storytelling about, where he was from, where he grew up. I mean, these are all songs about, his community and his friends. And so I went to Queensbridge and did the shoot there. He was there with his friends, his family, the neighborhood kids, the cops rolling by on their bicycles. It was kind of like a little bit of a block party in a way. Everybody was out their windows going, "Oh wow, Nasir is, has the record label here, and they're doing a big photo shoot in our community in Queensbridge." And it was just really fun. It was interesting because at the time, a lot of the bigger photographers weren't photographing hip hop. They weren't interested, thought it was a fad. And so it was an opportunity for a lot of younger photographers. I was excited to just run film through my cameras. Never could I have imagined that it would be one of the most legendary hip hop records of all time. And I always thank Search for having me be a part of it. I've run into Nas and we've worked together a lot since. I did the It Was Written record. I did Street Disciples. I did the most recent collab again with DJ Premier and Nas. He requested it because Premier had produced some of the Nas record. And he was like, "We got to get the three of us back together." Anyway, let me put my glasses on so I can see. Let's get to it. Right here, I'm looking at all the different cameras I used, my Hasselblad, my Leica, certainly the Widelux, per usual. For me, the hero image, there's a couple, but really it was the Widelux. The Widelux image of Nas walking through the neighborhood, just looking back over his shoulder at me, is the classic. And this was used in the Nas documentary that was done by 1-9. Then this is the image that I was telling you about where like all of his friends were hanging out and they were rolling blunts and just smoking weed and stuff. And when I showed him one of these images, he was pointing out to each guy which one was with us and which ones weren't any longer. This was all inside the packaging. This is this one shot of Nas and all his friends sitting on a park bench. I thought, oh, this is going to be a great photo for the Widelux. Wow, these are incredible. So I think this is in the packaging as well, but we were wandering around the neighborhood and we went by and we were shooting some photos and we noticed there was a guy back there. And when we went to have lunch, we had bought lunch for everyone. And Nas took one of the lunches over and gave it to this guy who was living on the street. And I was like, okay, that's the kind of guy this guy is. He's always so kind to people and treating everybody nicely. It's hard to see him, but he's right in there. Very simple portraits as well. I think these are interesting. Such a young, just a simple document of a really young Nas. The more of these than not, have never been seen. But it was a great location to photograph him. We were under the Queensboro Bridge, wandering around his neighborhood. It was pretty incredible. Back then, I was also doing a lot of cross processing, right? So you see these photographs that are really, really contrasty. And that's because I would take what was supposed to be a slide film, which when you looked at would be a positive. You could see the image the way it's supposed to be instead of a negative. And then I would process it as a negative. And the result would be very contrasty. And it was It was kind of trendy at the time. A lot of people were doing it back in the early 90s. But it became, a signature look of that era, especially in hip hop and in indie rock. And for me, shooting the hip hop artists was cool because when I tried to get myself in on some of the indie rock bands, they were all listening to hip hop. So if I showed them my images of Nas and Public Enemy, Run DMC, they got excited about working with me on their projects. This right here is the cover of the Nas record that is underneath, kind of double exposed, with Nas as a young man, which is a photo that I believe his mother had taken of him. People sometimes will ask me, they're like, "Oh, can you print me a print of the Nas cover?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, I didn't photograph him when he was 5." I notice here also there's what I call seconds. When you would shoot a slide film, you would do what's called a clip. And a clip would be, you would take the end of the roll of film and you would process it and make sure that it was looking good. And if it was a little underexposed, so a little dark or a little too bright, you could then adjust the way you process the film so that it would be as good as it possibly could be. These days, you just bust out the old iPhone, but these are pretty cool. So this was, instead of shooting everything with the cross-process thing, which is like a real look, I would also shoot some regular portraits as well with slide film, so that I would have that option. But here's the thing about the slides. The slide film doesn't have a negative to it. It's a positive, and you would put it in these sleeves and you'd turn it over to the record label, and then you would never see them again. Whereas if you had the negatives, you would send them a contact sheet, and then you would make a print from the contact sheet and send it to the label, and therefore you would have the negatives and you would have the original. And what happened back in the day is I would give the positives to the label and they would lose them, and I would never see them again. And that's why it's important that I have this archive. This is the Polaroids that I often use. I used them to test the light and to see what was going on, but also to get people excited about what we were doing. When you show them like this Polaroid and it looks so cool, then they're pretty stoked about it and on board with what we're doing. This was one of the classics for me, one of my hero images, this one right here. I just feel like Nas is a young man, like standing in his neighborhood in the projects, but being elevated, standing on the park bench. It's a very simple photograph. There's a lot of story in there because of what he's wearing, the clothing he's wearing, and that. And I really love these under the bridge. I find these to be really, really cool. And interestingly enough, in one of these images here is Faith Newman, who actually signed Nas in 1991 to Columbia and helped him in his career moving forward. This is kind of a cool photograph. He's holding like a jug of gin. And I ran into Faith recently, and she's as cool as ever. Has always been kind of a legend in the music industry. So, this is a testament to strong relationships. I continue to work with Nas throughout his career. As I said recently, I photographed him and DJ Premier for their last single. And I just saw they're about to launch another record. They used my photograph when they're talking about it. So that was pretty cool. Nas wanted to get the band back together. And since it was Premier who worked on his Illmatic record, and because it was me who photographed the Illmatic, he wanted me to do the photos. So I'm pretty proud of that. And thank you guys for coming through. This has been another good one, Nas Illmatic. And I look forward to doing more for you. Peace.
Peace.